Question number 5, Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Agriculture and asks, will the government adopt the OECD's 2011 recommendation that New Zealand implement water charging for agricultural uses?
The Honourable David Carter.
Mr. Speaker, the OECD report makes many recommendations, and some of the issues they've raised are already covered by current government policy. This government is committed to water reform, and to date we have been working very closely with the Land and Water Forum. LORF has also made a number of recommendations, and included in these is the recommendation that consideration be given to allocating as efficiently as possible water for industrial, agricultural and domestic purposes. Government has still to respond to the LORF recommendations.
Dr. Russel Norman.
Supplementary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Was the OECD wrong when it said about New Zealand, and I quote, "With little pricing of water resources, water scarcity is being felt increasingly acutely in some dairy-intensive regions prone to drought"?
The Honourable David Carter.
No, Mr. Speaker, but it's important to note that the OECD report up front said, quote, "The country's environment is of high quality," close quote. It did, however, recommend continued development on better measurement of water abstraction, something the government has done, and quality via a national guidelines, again, something this government has done.
Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will a charge on irrigation water benefit the New Zealand economy by driving efficiency gains in the irrigation sector, also decreasing pressure on over-allocated rivers and aquifers?
The Honourable David Carter.
Mr. Speaker, it is wrong to assume that farmers do not pay now for water. If they're involved in significant community or regional schemes, there is a charge. If they're involved in extracting water, they already also pay considerable costs for the benefit of that water they use.
Very good. Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Before I call the Honourable Member for his further question, the question actually asked whether water charges could improve efficiency in terms of allocation of water, as I understood the question. And the answer said, well, farmers already pay a charge, but it made no comment whatsoever about whether charging for water could have any impact on the efficiency of water use. And I believe the Minister should make some attempt to, because the question was, I think, a reasonable question. The Honourable David Carter.
Mr. Speaker, some attempts to put additional charge on water could well lead to some more efficient use of water. The very fact that we're now requiring irrigators over time to measure their actual water abstraction will also clearly lead to more efficient use of water.
Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, should we understand from that the government is leaving open the door to introducing a charge on irrigation water?
The Honourable David Carter.
No, what the member should take from that is that we are working very closely with the Land and Water Forum, who have made a number of recommendations. As I said earlier, some of those recommendations include finding more ways to more efficiently allocate water, not only to agricultural uses but to domestic and industrial uses as well, and government will respond to those LORF recommendations when it is ready to do so.
Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, will the Minister rule out the introduction of a charge on irrigation water in New Zealand?
The Honourable David Carter.
Mr. Speaker, the government will respond to the Land and Water Forums when the government is ready to respond to the Land and Water Forum recommendations.
Dr. Russel Norman.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order,
an absolutely clear question. The Minister might say we know, but he didn't really address the question at all.
Well, in fairness, on this occasion, the member asked whether the Minister would rule out charges for irrigation water, and the Minister in reply said the government was making no decision or announcements until it had finished its consideration of a report advising the government on these matters. And I think that's a reasonable position, not to rule anything out till the government's reached a position on advice. Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Minister agree with the Speaker's interpretation of his last answer that he is not ruling out a charge on irrigation water?
Speaker,
The Honourable David Carter.
Mr Speaker, in this matter, it is important that the government takes a position, not just myself as the Minister of Agriculture. Government will take a position, and when we do so, we will respond to the LORF recommendation, and at that time, the Minister will know what the government has decided.
Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can the Minister therefore confirm, in relation to his last answer, that the government has not at this point ruled out introducing a charge on irrigation water?
The Honourable David Carter.
Mr Speaker, the government is considering very carefully the recommendations of Land and Water Forum and will respond to those recommendations in the very near future.
Point of order.
Point of order, Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Just with regard to answering the last question, am I to take from you that your previous ruling stands, that answer again was that he is not ruling it out? Is that where to take?
Order, I cannot rule that way at all, but I think it is a perfectly fair answer from a minister when asked whether or not they'll rule matters in or out, where the minister and on behalf of the government is in the process of considering advice on significant issues like that, not to preempt any decisions the government might make, and I can't ask a minister to answer any more precisely than that when a matter is under consideration. Question number 6, Sumaroni.